everybody. Thanks for coming from the studio for the key lecture for this semester. I am pleased to introduce Pablo Güiraldes. In addition to being an alum of the program, of the MArch program, Pablo is an architect and urban designer. He has worked, taught, and lectured in both Argentina and the US. His built work includes single-family, multifamily, mixed-use developments, institutional projects, and master planning work. Pablo Güiraldes has been working in the public sector since 2015, first as the National Director for Urban Development with the National Secretary of Housing, and then as the General Director of Urban Regeneration with the City of Buenos Aires. We are lucky to have him with us as a key professor this semester and also as a lecturer here tonight. Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you. I want to thank the school for this opportunity to be the key professor this semester. If you guys ask your history teachers or just do the research on yourself, who the previous key professors have been, and you'll find some of the best names in architecture in America in the last, around 50 years since the program exists. And I don't count myself among them, so, but I just to say that you really have to be really happy of the idea that this program exists. And I think for me it's like some kind of reward for being, alone, having been taught here, participated in several, especially study abroad program. And the fact that I went back to Argentina and tried to put in practice some of the things I learned here. So I just want to share my experiences of the past maybe decade. I try to make some sense of it, so that's why the title of the lecture. They asked me to put a title and said, okay, maybe there will be some coherence between the projects I'm going to show, so I'm going to name it Common Ground. So maybe that will flesh out during the conference. So I'm going to show work that I've done in the private sector, in the public sector, for non-for-profits and different other organizations in the last decade, and try to put a thread to the whole sample. So I'm going to start with a couple of competitions that I had awards for in Argentina. The first one is the Central Business District of San Ysidro, which is an old suburb of Buenos Aires. And this is the way it looked in the 1920s. San Ysidro was founded during the colonial period, and it was the small port where the goods, the farm goods, were shipped to Buenos Aires, which is 20 kilometers southeast. In the 1920s, it was a kind of very nice, contained small town center, but in the last century has become a much larger. So what the picture, the pointer here, I think so. The picture that we saw first is down there. That's the cathedral that you see in the first picture. So you can see it has turned into a real small central business district. And from a very simple life, simple urban structure, place has become kind of a messy mix of offices, schools, some residential. But also, if you go down the slope all the way to the river, still keeps some of the original wetland landscape that it has when it was founded like 300 years ago. So the competition asked to put together a plan to rearrange some of the most conflictive areas that are around this, close to this park where the craft fair takes place every Saturday and Sunday. So we put a label on some kind of name to the presentation, which was our common ground, what brings us together. Because what happens in the downtown is, even though it's compact and has like 10 blocks by 6 blocks, there's a lot of things going on, and people use the same downtown for many different uses, and there's a conflict between traffic, pedestrians, commercial activities. There's a court. There's the law. The courts of law are there too. The business, the central government building is also there. So we tried to put together a plan where the pedestrian axis would connect all the neighborhoods and take you from the main avenue and the train station down all the way to the river. So we proposed a pedestrianized center with mixed use and also densifying the center because there's no land use above the commercial area, and using the park you saw before as a new cultural center and activities for, you can see that the park we saw in the third slide is this one over here. So we redesigned it in order to get people to go down the slope to the river, which is a disconnected area. So the whole presentation was thought of as an urban agenda for the city. And we won a third prize, and we went to the presentation, and almost all of the winners had almost the same ideas in different combinations. So we thought this is a great agenda for the city. Sadly, the city didn't embrace any of the winners and didn't use it. But in the end, I ended up working in the government of Buenos Aires, where this agenda is kind of the basis for the daily work. But it was really sad to see how you can kind of take the horse to the water, but you can make them drink it. And they only put together some of these issues, not many of them. So you can see here all our proposals. We had a proposal for public spaces, for bringing the town together. Public spaces, because of the geometry, most of Buenos Aires is a very, very regular gridiron, but San Ysidro, because it was funded before the gridiron arrived, it has a very unique geometry, it has a lot of different small public spaces. So we propose to give each one of them its own identity and use them as focus of activity and a focus of identity. We also propose some new land uses above all the retail areas, because there's no residential activity above the main commercial axis. So we propose, and they don't want to stop their commercial activity to build anything above it. So my proposal was to bring light construction and make possible to build even with the retail areas working. And the four means of transportation, there's a train station, there's a bus terminal, obviously there's cars everywhere, and there's no bike trails in the city at all. There's only bike trails around this area, which is the horse racetrack. There's only bike trail that the city has, so we're proposing to bring bikes into the city. Many people want to bike, but they can't because there's no. They just share the streets with the cars, and obviously pedestrianize the downtown. And we also put a plan together to improve retail fronts, to basically redo the whole urban space arrangements. As I said, the competition was a success, everybody loved it. They didn't do it. But you have to be patient, because sometimes later in life you get the opportunity to bring your agenda together. So this first competition was like an complete urban space, urban life, like Daniel would say, agenda. The next one was more of an architecture statement. It's in Mar del Plata, which is the biggest seaside city in Argentina. We have 1 million people per year during the summer vacation. And this, the site was the North Pier in the Mar del Plata port, and it was right beside the most important beach in the city. So this is the pier as it is today. It has freight ships, has fishing ships, and also has the cruise ships terminal, which is the white building right on top of the picture. But it's really, and it's used by a lot of fishermen who are there with their equipment and fish every day. But other than that, it's really underused. And you can see it to the right. You have in the pictures I'm going to show the location, because most of the lecture is also about geography in Argentina and nature in Argentina and how it will affect, and it is affecting many of the architectural and public the policies that are taking place now. So this is the beach in the summertime. You can see it's pretty crowded. So the city saw an opportunity to create a cultural and commercial spine right beside the beach, so in this underused pier. So basically, the proposal was to bring, there's also a need for parking, so we were combining parking, and on top of the parking we created a pedestrian way, which had shops and restaurants, and combined with that there will be multiple use facilities that could become exhibition spaces, convention spaces. So the whole idea was under a big roof, and you can see that later we'll see that the roof became an artificial dune, which was the original landscape in the place. And we worked together with a friend of mine who's a great urban element designer. He has designed urban furniture and equipment for Buenos Aires for a long time, Diana Cabeza, and she had her partner is a great landscape architect. So together they came up with this idea of turning the roof of the building onto a new dune and reconfiguring what the original dunes would have been before the city was there. So you could walk on top of the dune, and the dune had the highest. This is from the south is where the strongest winds come, so the highest vegetation was on the south to give shelter from the wind, and also the more calmer activities would be on the north side. So as I said, this was more of a, in the first competition we were trying to reconstruct the city from where it actually is now, and in this the agenda was to put together a really aggressive land use, combining commercial activities, restaurants and tourism with exhibitions, etc., under one big building, which is a kind of antithetical but also based on sustainability approach. So these terraces would take you to the place where all the fishermen would be fishing. So you combine daily more sports or outdoor activities with cars exhibitions, cultural activities, music festivals, etc. Well, moving far away from the sea and into the Pampas. And this is a project for new urban development in Sunchales, which is a city in Santa Fe, in the heart of the Pampas. Santa Fe, Sunchales is obviously the original city is here, and it was designed on a very regular gridiron. It was designed in the late 1800s, after the national organization in Argentina took place in 1860, and railroads were being built all over the country, and along the railroads, new towns would be designed and built, where colonies and immigrants would come. And this area of Argentina was mostly populated by Italians from the Piemonte, and they really and the combination is they would design the town with obviously the typical blocks, 100 meters by 100 meters, and then all around them they would put this other super grid for farms to take place. But maybe later, when the town would grow, they would use this super grid to build new fabric, and that was going on. But then this is the owner of the development is an insurance company. It's the largest one of the largest insurance companies in Argentina, And the seat is here in this very small town of about 25,000 people, because the insurance company grew, was a spin-off of a dairy cooperative which was founded in the town, which is called Sancor. Sancor is Santa Fe and Córdoba, which are two provinces in Argentina where these old dairy farms would gather together and create this big cooperative. And then, because they needed insurance, they created an insurance company, but then the insurance company grew much larger than the dairy. So now they're really a powerful company, and they have a really ambitious plan. They own the airport. The company owns the airport, and then they bought all this land, and they moved their headquarters from downtown to outside the city. So it wasn't a very pro-urban agenda. They were doing everything outside the city. So when they called us to do the new development, we tried to make it as urban, compact, and open as possible, which was not totally in their agenda at the time, but we had the help of the city officials. We were really, really strongly against even the development to happen there. We tried to work together so we could get the most urban approach we could have. So this is how the landscape looks there, and there's the cattle, where the dairy comes from. So, and the town, as you saw it in the pictures, in the aerial photograph, is this one, and our site is down here to the, where's the airport? No, right here on the other side. So as I said, the town was not very happy for us to do this development outside the city, so they were demanding a lot of urban attitude, a good urban attitude from the developer, and then that helped our project to become more urban, more compact, and more complete in terms of land use and mix of incomes. That's City Hall, and that's the headquarters. So you see that the company grew so much that they did their own new headquarters. It looks like the Enterprise, no? Like. Really not very urban at all. So it was really complicated to combine their agenda, even though I think the building got a LEED certification. It doesn't look very, very urban friendly. So this is our scheme, and we got help because this is a canal that runs close to the city, and there were very, very severe floods during the time we were designing it. So the line that we had to leave free because of flooding kept moving in every month. There was another rain, and then they discovered that we had to move another 50 meters in. So in the end, we had to put together 400 lots for single-family houses and another X amount of, I think it was 1,000 multifamily housing units, and we kept making it more and more compact. The most interesting thing, other than the scheme, we wanted to combine. We had larger lots, smaller lots for younger families, and then this is the area with the mixed use, commercial, and also some office activities. They had a very, very strong technological incubator within the company, and they wanted to put the seed of that there too. So they really, because they had so much money, they could do it in a few years. So the whole infrastructure now is in place, and these first institutional buildings are being built right now. So they wanted a big, strong. This is the logo of the company, and they wanted to have a strong presence from the root. We had to work this roundabout with the city because they didn't want the traffic to go across the route, because the route that connects with all the commercial activity and the loading activity in the area. A very compact downtown with institutional buildings, and then different arrangements of single family with their own public space, etc. And in the very first passes, we didn't have a lot of time or money to develop it, so it was a lot of freehand. But as the project evolved and they knew they could do it, they started investing in better presentations. This is all the first draft, and we wanted to create a multifamily and office building typology that would withstand the weather, which is very severe. In the summertime, it's very, very strong, so we proposed a typology that would have loggias all around, front and back, to be shaped to the actual program. So the buffer area became a public park for the city, and also they had a buffer area against the airport landing path. So it ended up being a more compact scheme surrounded by public green, which is, I guess, a great result. And this is another private development in which the city also was very involved. This is the city Zárate. It's 90 miles north of Buenos Aires along the Paraná River, which is one of the greatest rivers, the equivalent of our Mississippi. It's a very strong river that crosses Argentina north to south. It ends in Rio del Plata, which is the huge estuary right beside Buenos Aires. And this was originally a meatpacking factory. It was the first factory that produced frozen meat for export. Actually, it was British capitals. And the city of Zárate, well, historically, the whole city worked around the meatpacking place, which was called Smithfield originally. So the city is up here along the river, but then there's a slope, and everything there, part of it was originally wetlands, and there was a ferry connecting, because this was the connecting ferry was exactly what the bridge is to what is called the Argentine Mesopotamia, which are 3 provinces that are surrounded by rivers. So this was one of the most important connecting points for the country, and in the 1970s the ferry was replaced by this huge bridge, which at the time was one of the biggest bridges in South America. So a company that has a lot of investments in port areas saw this opportunity, they bought it. That's the way it looked. Before they bought it, most of these steel structures from the old sheds were in place. But because nobody took care of the site, it was being vandalized and it disappeared in like 3 years. So people from the city were really, really concerned about what was going to happen with the site. Luckily for the city, there was a historic preservation expert that worked with the city and put together a preservation plan to keep most of the old structures in place. So the site plan was really helped with this combination of old and new, and they had arranged for a very, very aggressive amount of new construction. So this is the site. This is the city of Zárate. That's the site. And there's military activities on the side. There were a couple of slums that were relocated by the city. They were new gated communities, and like in 20 kilometers around the city, there's like 5 automotive fabric industries: Toyota, Honda, all the Japanese, but also General Motors. So there's a lot of demand for housing for executives and good firms. So if a good development would take place here, there would be an opportunity to create a new town center, a new center for Zárate, but also to bring in people to live from different places that wouldn't find housing, or they would be moving into gated communities like those that were being lived around. But again, it was kind of a struggle, because in Argentina, real estate developers, when they think of multifamily, they only think of freestanding towers. It's the default product that you would ask for. So even making a plan where you will have public space, historic buildings, and new fabric that made any sense was kind of a challenge, because also they had settled for too much. The amount of square footage that was agreed between the city and the developer was a lot. So we were working in different schemes for a lot. First they wanted to demolish most of the old buildings, then they realized they couldn't do it because they couldn't get approved at all. And so we were combining. And actually, because the existing buildings were quite high and they had a big presence on the river, they didn't want any of the towers to be challenging or competing visually with this. So basically, the towers also had to be set back. The sad thing is, after working on this site plan for a long time, the first tower, I was trying to talk to them about hiding the parking somewhere, creating some kind of parking lots or parking green spaces. The first tower they built was this one, which was freestanding in the center of the lot and surrounded by parking. But at least the good thing is they kept all the buildings in the front. They put a cultural center for the city, a museum. So it became a combination of public and private, and there's a health clinic taking place here. So all of this is being built as we speak. So we wanted to create, in Argentina, there's a big expectation that every new residential building will have a modern look. So there's not a feeling for combining old styles or whatever was in place before that. So it was good to show that keeping some of the old warehouses in close distance with new architecture, you could get a good urban feeling without sacrificing your real estate product. Was a big demand for that. So luckily we had this central space which had to be preserved, and the old buildings. The commitment was to reconstruct the sheds. Well, this is right now, as I said, the building that has been built is the tower which is out there, but they're working on completing the perimeter of this main space. It's a combination. The city created a special entity like an authority. So the authority got into an agreement with all the owners of every piece of land on the waterline, on the riverfront. And well, obviously they agreed on FAR, height, setbacks, etc., etc. But then, the city would charge the owners for the infrastructure they had to build based on whatever they're expected to sell from this X amount of construction they were getting. So a few months ago, I met a guy who worked for the city. At the time, we were doing this project and having big arguments with the owners and other architects who were working there. And he met me after a long time, we hadn't seen each other. And he said to the other guy who was with him, I think Pablo helped save the sal at the riverfront. I said, well, that's a good compliment, I'll take it. So these are, they call the lofts, obviously. It was all parts of the old meat factory. They're turning them into very high-end units, and in this part it's still very hard to sell this kind of unit because it's not a high market for high-end residential. Okay, moving along across Argentina very fast and changing the subject. This is the Patagonic Ice Museum. There was a private group who who was working doing tourism across Patagonia, especially on the glacier region. Argentina and Chile share the largest glacier formation in the world, which is 200 kilometers long, on top of the Andes. And one of the biggest glaciers is Perito Moreno, which is a constant moving glacier. It ends in the lake. And every 2 years, there's a tunnel that is carved because the glacier pushes down and it closes a body of water on the other side and the water starts to push. So every 2 years, it carves a tunnel. And when the tunnel finally falls, like everybody's there with cameras waiting for that because it's a world event. So a private group saw the opportunity to create an interpretation center for the glacier because this is visited like 300,000, 500,000 people a year from all over the world. It's one of the most important destination points in Argentina. But they want to do a kind of a museum to give a whole explanation to people who just go there, see the glaciers and do some trekking and go back home. So they would understand what they had been looking at and the history of the place and the history of the geology, etc., etc. So they bought a piece of land outside the city of Calafate, which is the closest location. So this is the way you see it. This is like 100 meters high. And there's tours that you go there on boats, but you can't get closer than 100 or 200 meters because if one of these pieces falls, I've seen that happen, it might kill you. And actually the walkways were built after a few tourists were killed by the fall of one of these huge pieces of ice. Obviously the glaciers are much more interesting than what I'm going to show you. I thought I'd put it first. And this is the town that has been growing in a very unorganized way. That's the oldest portion, obviously. The town is, the airport has moved 3 times because the town is growing so fast. So the first airport is like down here, and the second airport has become the new development down there, and the third airport is 20 kilometers away, which now is too far. But this is the town where the former president Kirchner came from and his wife, so they put a lot of money into it during their presidency, maybe now that they're coming back to government. But then there was a competition. We didn't win the competition because the guy who was creating the contents of the museum had a better idea at the time, but then they couldn't perform. And then in February the next year, they called us very fast. We have 1 month to start construction and we need something. And we put together this perspective on the top of the step with a group of younger architects who were working with us at that time. And with that, we started the project. And it has, the content is basically, well, there's a lot of sampling here. There's a field of ice, is shown there, a map of the world where all the glaciers are, some history, and there's a countdown time tunnel, which is a dramatic way to talk about climate change. And there's a show of the glacier falling down back here. And there's an ice bar underneath the hall. And these are the bathrooms, office, and actually the hall. So obviously you see that we're trying to play with the idea of ice shapes coming down and crashing into each other, etc., etc. And the section is very dramatic because the place has a big slope. So actually our first idea was to sink the whole thing half level down, but then the builder who was from the place, he was maybe in charge of everything. No, that's too expensive. And then when we started building it, the other chip was so high that he had to fill in, I don't know, like 2-3 meters here. So in the end, our idea was not so bad. So this is, we were doing like the tour prospects, the diagrams so people would know how to move around the building, everything at the same time, combining SketchUp and AutoCAD, etc. It was a very fun experience because we were working as graphic designers, all kinds of things we hadn't done before. So the building sits there, kind of really lonely in the middle of the steppe. Depends on how you look at it, maybe a little bit too much. And sometimes it doesn't never blend with the landscape, and as glaciers don't blend with whatever is around them. But it tries to do something like. So these are the three towers. There are bathrooms and office above, and the kitchen of the cafeteria, etc. And this is the director's office facing the lake. Actually, the lake is to the right. The construction had to be fast, and there was not many options of materials, and there's a big warehouse area, and most of the builder was building warehouses for the logistics of the city. So we said, okay, maybe steel frame and corrugated steel is a good combination, and we can use it. And then we had to do some other, the part where people would spend more time, they needed more insulation, and then we resorted to this combination, it's called EFS, which is styrofoam combined with protected concrete, which is the towers. That's the hallway. Again, it was a very, very simple construction. It's concrete, like here. And the inside of those towers, and drywall ceiling with some carvings, trying to look like the plaques of the pieces of ice moving. And the shop, next to the gift shop. Well, except for the bags, I guess, all that was sold there was supposed to be recycled content and manufactured by local craftsmen, etc., etc. So there was people who know most about glaciers in Argentina work in this center. So if you need to look for information and science about glaciers, they look in other places too, but they are part of the staff and the scientific board of the museum. This is the view from the bar, cafeteria. And the glaciers are actually, I think, 50 kilometers away. So I think one of the things that didn't work so well was the location, because the museum is not either in the town where people go after or before they go to the glaciers, or in the glaciers where everybody goes by default. So it was hard for them to get the amount of people they were expecting, but then they finally installed this ice bar that you have all over the world, that people love them, so it captured more time. And the contents are, I think, there was a discussion we had, but I don't think we could win that argument, is that the people who designed the context wanted this to be a black box, everything would be artificial lighting. So we argued with them for a while. I think this is a very dramatic place. You could have openings to see outside, etc., etc., and you would save energy if you at least would use some natural lighting. But the scheme was there before we got into the architecture, so that's the way it is. The information there is state of the art, is the latest and the greatest. You can really learn and understand about glaciers. So this is the model of the ice field. So this represents the 200 by, 50 kilometers of the ice sheet that you find. And these are all the different landscape components of the region. And this, by the time the museum was finished, I thought this countdown into the drama of destroying Earth was too much, and this was 2011. But now I think maybe it was too little. It was showing people killing baby seals and oil fields burning, and there was, in the end, it was a clock ticking, etc., etc. I thought, well, maybe this is too much, but maybe we need to bring this closer because maybe it's completely right. And then staying in Patagonia, and I'm moving into my experience in public housing in a very dramatic way. This is Comodoro Rivadavia, which is closer, but by the sea, closer in terms of its latitude. It's down south in Argentina. It's the oil capital of Argentina. It's like Argentina, Houston. And the oil companies have all seats and fields around there. But it's also built in a very fragile environment, as you can see by looking at this terrace slope, because when the city was built and started growing towards this hill here, they realized that this is a very fragile soil and they've been fooling around with it, so if it rained really heavily, they would bring this down into a mudslide and really cover the city. So they started, this is engineering that has been done in the last 10 years to keep at least the downtown from being affected by heavy rainfall. But then in April 2017, this is the growth of Comodoro Rivadavia, the outskirts, and it's a combination of public housing, slums, or just settlements, and it is all driven by people who work in the oil industry. And so basically they started putting their towns closer to the oil fields, so it became a huge sprawl, and everybody moves around in huge trucks, and they think this can go on forever. But nature had a different idea. So in April 2017, 400 millimeters of rain fell in 2 days, and it carved out especially all the streets that had been built on top of old water streams. So nature went looking for its original place and really ripped off the infrastructure of half the city. So that what you see down there is sewage and water, and then you see where the water actually went when the pipe was not there anymore. And that had been happening since I started working in the national government in 2015. In Christmas 2015, we had El Niño, and it rained all over Argentina, and like 10 towns, mid-sized towns, were kind of covered with water, and we started traveling around the country, trying to assist from the housing point of view, not from the FEMA, but just trying to understand what the housing needs were after the flood. And we started asking local governments, what's your project to replace the housing you've lost? And they started sending projects that were located in places that were, if there were environmental hazards or flood, etc. So we had to put together a new set of rules to really address this, because there was a guilty conscience or something with the central government that had to get money quickly to solve this problem. Then we were giving money to make the situation even worse. So we decided to put what we call traffic lights. So we give you some parameters, and you have to tell us if you meet these parameters and if you can really do housing in a place where it wouldn't flood, be close to the existing infrastructure, close to existing schools, close to existing jobs. And it was a very, very hard process. But in the end, we ended up writing off a third of all the housing demand that we were being asked. But Comodoro was an extreme case because it's a 200,000 people city, and we flew the day after the storm, and the municipality and the state government were already even working together. You can see here more of the destruction. But you can also see that they have been building streets to nowhere. But you see this is a huge street. There's nothing along the street. Maybe the town that this street was serving was 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers away, but they would still keep building streets on top of the old streams. And you had an army triage, and everybody working there, which was fantastic to be part of that. But it happened too often, and many times it was not due just to what nature was doing, but what man had done before, not thinking about what would nature do afterwards. So it was a very strange situation to have to fix human mistakes. And when we were there at the first meeting, with the demand was for a combined sum of 4,000 housing units in a city of 100,000 people, so it means like 5% or 2% of the whole city. But in the end, we started saying, okay, give me the list of people that you need, you really can prove they need a house. Give me the list of people that were living here before. In the end, we ended up financing 100 housing units. That's how hard it was. And of those 100 units, we had a request for 16 units, but we couldn't find any government agency in the city or in the state to take care of that. So we hired a team of architects and said, well, let's try to show how a multifamily mid-rise architecture could work here. So we did a small, simple kind of 1/2 units combination of, because also was people who were elderly or they didn't even want to have stairs inside the unit, so we just put flats in the ground floor and 2-floor units on top of that and a small piece of land. So very simple. We also wanted to have a more industrialized construction because in Argentina everybody wants to do some kind of masonry, either brick or ceramic brick. And what we also found is none of them were meeting the thermal insulation standards that we were requesting. So we thought that if we were pushing for steel frame construction or wood frame construction or some other industrialized or semi-industrialized system, for you in America this is your everyday, but in Argentina, the people who manufacture brick are very powerful and they have a big lobby and they've been pushing for this. So we started having even technical contests. We take them to housing conferences and each one of them had to show why their system was better than the other one. We proposed a steel frame for this complex. I'm going to show that there could be a contemporary look, an urban look. But there was a big problem that this piece of land was attached to a public park. So people saw this land even though it was plotted as future private lots as part of their public. So they did a hug of the park and the project had to move away. And it turned into single family. So, but the big problem in Argentina with housing and available land is that cities and provinces they want to give them money to build housing, but they don't want to pay or make land available close to the infrastructure or as part of a larger urban fabric. So this is La Boca, which is one of the most touristic spots in Buenos Aires. It's the limit between the City of Buenos Aires and the state of Buenos Aires, which are the same name. And it's also one of the most polluted rivers in the world. We're working on that right now. So the city of Avellaneda, which is the one on the left, had a piece of land that they were developing as single-family housing. But it was very close to the river and to the infrastructure. So this is La Boca. If you go to Argentina, you most certainly go to Calafate where the glaciers are, and you most certainly will go to La Boca. So we were working in hotspots. So the La Boca part of the Buenos Aires part of La Boca is this one over here, and the most touristic spot is here called Caminito Street. So you have tango dancers and very typical stuff there. And this was originally well, the Riachuelo area has been many different things, but lately, or at least until like 4 years ago, was one of the heavy industrialized areas in the city. And that's why it's also very polluted. But there is this piece of land that has been given to the city of Avellaneda to build housing, and they had a plan for 1,000 units in 40 acres. So we said, okay, this is not enough density, and at that time we were working together with the authority of the tidal basin of Riachuelo, with the City of Buenos Aires and the province of Buenos Aires. And we told them we think this is not a good idea just to put typical social housing in a place that might become a very desirable urban place. So this is what the housing that they were doing looks like. And we propose to be much more aggressive and densify and make it a real mixed use, and also keep creating opportunities for mixed income, different kinds of real estate projects. So really make it part of a larger piece in the city. And we also, in the end, we mirror it in the Buenos Aires side to show that we could do a real two-side river. Buenos Aires has spent a lot of money on this side of the river. The other cities have not, but it's an ongoing project where cleaning the water is obviously the first phase. So we told the city, okay, we can give you, instead of 1,000 units, we can give you 4,000, which takes care of much of the deficit that the whole basin has, but you can also give us a strip of land along the river to turn into a real estate initiative to bring touristic activity, retail, etc., to make it a more livable place. And we'll give you back green space that you don't have education facilities, health facilities, etc. Well, we are working on this as we speak, but due to the change of government, longer conversations will take place. The City of Buenos Aires has done public housing in the last 4 years that it goes in the same direction. So we have good examples to show that this could work, and we could combine real estate products with public housing products. In Argentina, public housing means ownership, not like in America where public housing means rental units. So it's very hard for when the agencies build it and give it away, they shy from high density and multifamily because they think the building association won't work and people are not going to pay the fees, etc., and the maintenance of the whole building is difficult. So this is a whole process that has to be reversed, because if not, we will keep building single family units or townhouses where we shouldn't. Going back to private activity, and some other place in the other end of the City of Buenos Aires, it's Tigre and the Delta. The Delta is one of the biggest deltas, wetlands in the world. It's a natural reserve. It's a natural reserve of, I don't know the size, but it's huge, and it's close to Buenos Aires, obviously across the river. And the city of Tigre is the one that has control of the closest area of the delta, but also has most of its history and most of its culture is based on the presence of the delta and the activities there. This building over here, it was a social club until the late 60s, and now it's a city museum, but it's kind of one of the most typical examples. There's historical rowing clubs along the river and closer to the city. So there's a lot of push to keep the delta, and also there's a lot of demand to show that you can grow in the delta without ruining what makes sense. So to show the delta is crossed by canals, wider and narrower, and people just move on boats. There's no way to arrive there but on boats, rowing, motorboats, bass boats. You have grocery boats that move around and bring your groceries home. So everybody has a small pier with a moor and the steps, because the river, the tide they change during the day 1 or 2 meters. So a friend of mine owned a natural reserve. He wanted to turn it into an educational center and a nature conservation center. So he was coming together with some schemes how to make it work. And again, like it happened in the Ice Museum, we were doing graphic design, some kind of brochures, etc., etc. So from our Google Earth, master plan, SketchUp, now this is the board that receives you when you get there and gives you orientation. So when you come in from the canal here, this is the visitor center, the interpretation center, the restaurant, the toilets there that you saw in the first image, and then you have a path that takes you. And that is the peculiarity of this is there is no closer to Tigre, to the city. There's no parts of the delta that are preserved like they were historically. So now this was kept because somebody owned it for 20 years and did nothing. So nature grew back as it was. So there was an opportunity to just keep it as it was, and you can see birds and small mammals and some other ducks and typical birds from there. So it turned into a nature reserve and a species conservation center. So basically the way you walk in the delta is on boardwalks because it floods very often. So if you want to make sure that you can get out of your house, you need these. So we made it, like part of the whole design is all these boardwalks that connect different places. Very simple wood construction, it's very cheap, there's a lot of wood in the area, and it's the only way you build in the delta. Some people like to build with metal or concrete or whatever, but what really makes sense because of the price and the speed is built with wood. We've been thinking about this connection for a long time because these two pieces of it's not bamboo, it's kind of Argentine bamboo. We thought it was the best place to put a connection between the interpretation center and the restaurant. So this is number 6 in TripAdvisor if you go to Tigre. But again, it's hard to make money with kind of philanthropic efforts. So basically, they also have a program for species conservancy, which is very strong. And they also rent it for company events, retirements, retreats. I thought this kind of small amphitheater was a very successful place, as you can see here. So there's environmental awareness talks, cooking lessons, all sorts of events. And in terms of energy conservation, it's very, they decided there's no air conditioning here, so if it's hot and the fans are not enough, okay, you open the windows and you enjoy the weather. So there's not a problem with energy for at least air conditioning. And obviously there's natural light everywhere. And the paths were kept exactly as they were. This is a combination, this works as small dams to keep control of floods. Actually right now this kind of engineering of the land is forbidden, but because it was there when they arrived, they couldn't say anything. But if you want to try to do this in the delta right now, you can, because they don't want you to interrupt the flow of the water in the floods, because it gives a lot of environmental services. It filters water, communicates, keeps species alive, irrigates, obviously. And the story of the toilet pavilion is we did a Photoshop drawing with my son, who's a graphic designer and was working for me at the time, and we wanted to to give it a more local flavor, so we did this in like 10 minutes. And I thought we could do all of the pavilions with this image, but then one of the owners didn't like the bamboo because he said it was hard to maintain. But at least we got the toilets. And a few years later, there was a big management plan for the whole delta, because in Tigre there had been a very bad experience with a private developer who kind of killed one entire island, did a lot of landfill, he wanted to bring cars, he took away the people who were living in the island before he arrived, etc. So there was all the environmental agents, not-for-profits close to Tigre, were really strong against it, so the city decided to put a moratorium on any development for like a few years, and then they came with a very strong management plan. And it seemed like you couldn't do almost anything. So we had to put together a presentation for a real estate conference to show that you could do some development in Delta that made sense and also would be based on the lifestyle that the Delta really proposes. So we created this small Delta village, which is housing units of different kinds, connected with boardwalks. Sorry, thank you. That's a Spanish creeping in. There's a town center with a small wood town square where you have craftsmen, fruit vendors, there's a small school, orchards that have to be raised so that they don't flood, but everything else, the land is untouched. And obviously you arrive by boat, and you can live there on the land, and you can take your kids to school. Obviously, in the Delta, the sad thing is, historically, until the 60s, there was a heavy, really, presence of wood industries and fruit, and up to 30,000 people live there. And now there's less than 7,000 permanent residents. So the idea to bring people back to live in the Delta is not, it would be a great, but then life, the people who want to go back there, people who are really ecology oriented, younger families, etc., etc. So we have to give them a place where they really can go about their life. I think basically they would all like to live in their own house, in their own piece of land, but since the ordinance, there's not so much land available. So this was all based on our previous experience in the natural reserve. We want to take it a notch up, a little bit more, not too much architectural ambition, because you know construction is going to have to be really simple anyway. So these are the orchards, and this is the town square with the craftsmen working there. And these are all activities that are happening today in different parts of the Delta. Now we're not coming up with characters or cultural adventure. We really want to just combine what the Delta has to offer. So this is the residential square, which is all green, when it doesn't flood, and when it floods, you can just go kayaking or canoeing in front of your property. Well, inland in Tigre, the same guy who did the natural reserve is a close friend, has bought some land from old factories or industrial areas that were abandoned. This is for the students in Architecture 700. This is Canal San Fernando, right here. Our site is here, and the villa is down here. And first, he had bought a piece of land which was an old shipyard. But then he partnered with a very aggressive real estate developer who turned it into a very private marina kind of site, which is very close. And then he said, well, this is not what I want. I want to really bring back urban life, urban quality to Tigre. So we've been working together for like 8 years in this site, and this is the latest iteration when he hired some renderers to do a very fancy architecture scheme. But basically, it's a combination of very high-rise multifamily with passages and narrower streets across the site to make a combination of urban atmospheres in both sides of the street. So this is basically the scheme. Our beautiful small station is there. I'm talking to the 700 people who are trying to understand what's going on. So they bought, in total, is 3 hectares. But they also had an agreement with the city. They can put a lot of density here. It's around 1,000 housing units. But they also wanted to create some nice urban character, because these are the typical block is like that, and these are huge blocks with no connectivity, especially parallel to the main street here, which is Italia. So we cut the blocks and created these passages which have some precedent in the city very close to here. So these are some aerial views. And then they had an agreement with the same foundation who's running the natural reserve. They're doing a science center here. And they're waiting for funding from the national government. So they will be the hub or the first anchor of the whole development will be a science museum for the city. So this is more of the ground level. And the thing is, these renderings were done 2 years or 3 before the other one. So at the beginning, we were thinking, okay, let's make it more industrial and local with brick and corrugated steel, etc., etc. And for this pass, he got a more fancier and started putting more aggressive architecture there. So we had a double. He hasn't made his mind yet. But again, there is a lot of local street level activity in Tigre that will be invited or to participate here. And these are the streets around, which combine open spaces, the canal, sorry, this is the canal. So we had some fancy boats with fruit, like the grocery boats participating. This is just sharing between Tigre and San Fernando, which is the closest municipality. But before he got to that, and he's still working on giving value to the land, we are working on using the whole area as a site for different kinds of events, culture events, incubator for local commercial and crafts activity, job training, etc., etc. So we did another master plan, which is to use the site as it is for the time being for different activities. We were trying to show what kind of activities you could have in the meanwhile. So that there would be also music fairs, music festivals. Obviously, food trucks are very fancy these days. And we drew that, this, and I said, well, he was also inspired by Wynwood, so he went to have murals all over. But the funny thing is, he really made it real. So this is a Shakespeare Globe Theater that you could rent. You can have a franchise from the Shakespeare Company, and this is a kind of tent you can put together. And they went to Buenos Aires a couple of times. So there's Shakespeare Festival, so we thought we would put it there. And there was also an artist residence using one of the existing buildings. So this really came into life. So these are, again, as it happens in the natural reserve, he's attracting all kinds of hackathons for different activities. This is a combination of uses that are taking place there. This is the artist residence. This is a guy who's manufacturing wood boats there, who previously worked for Google. Different hackathons for incubators. This is a social enterprise to give work for people from the slums, natural products, crafts, etc., etc. So there you go. This is a human part of it, which must be the best of it. This is a guy who left Google to manufacture wood boats. These are arts festivals and concerts. So this is all happening in the piece of land he owns before the real estate kicks in. Maybe we should expect or should hope for the real estate not to happen. There's, as the group knows, there are slums all around, so engaging and giving participation to the people who live there, I think, is the key to bring the city back to life. So that's my friend over there, Dino, who's the owner of both Tigre Sur and the other, the Delta Terra, and this is Nicolas Helft, who left Google to manufacture wood boats with people that live there. Well, now, directly to what I'm doing right now, a brief sample of. My wife is killing me. For the last year and a half, finally I got into urban space, purely to urban space, because I was hired as director for urban regeneration, which means bringing back to life existing urban spaces and existing neighborhoods all over the city. So I had the opportunity to really, first to work in the City of Buenos Aires, where I had never worked, curiously, and also to really experience firsthand how we really work in a huge city with a huge administration, with a lot of strong public policies dealing with urban space and people in the public space, just bringing it to life. So I'm just showing a couple of projects, and I might not have time to show you the actual design process, but like in Plaza Corredon, we had worked on the project for several months, and then we heard that it wasn't going to go through, and we decided to talk to the people in charge of the communes, which are the sub-entities in the city. I said, well, if you see the projects, you're really going to like it. So we showed the project, we loved it, and we could go forward with it. So we just did some very small renovation to pavers and to the landscape there, but most of our biggest triumph was this circle where we put a timeline of all the events of this area of the city. This is one of the oldest churches in Buenos Aires. And the city was, the plaza was really competed by people who didn't have a house and slept there all the night, kids who wanted to play there, families, etc. So after this intervention, everybody says that they can live together in a much closer relationship, and everybody understands each other, and it's a much better experience. But just to show you the simple things that you can do in public space, just rearranging things, we created some connections between the different paths, so people who go to the metro can get there. There's more opportunities for seating and just very, very basic stuff. This is a preservation project, Mercado del Progreso, which is just finished. It's a new market, food market, and shops. It's a nice Art Deco building. And what the city does is it gets into agreements with the owners, and we deal with the exterior with our own professionals and the building companies, but then they take care of the inside and improve it. And the city, with this initiative, has done like 3 or 4 markets, and we're doing another one right now. It's very successful and really brings together life to them. And we're also renovating the whole transportation hub around the market, but I don't have the material here, so I might show it later sometime when I come back. Okay, this is just finished. And then Buenos Aires has a huge, it's a big heritage of many times. It doesn't have, curiously, a lot of colonial architecture, because when Spain was rich, Buenos Aires was a poor city, so most of the heritage in Buenos Aires is from the late 1800s to today, but to the mid-1900s. And there's Art Deco, modern architecture, neoclassical, French, English, you name it, there's a lot. So preservation, luckily, has gotten very, very strong in the last 20 years. And I think the last project is, this is very dear to me because this is the former city zoo. And I have a lot of family history here because my grandfather used to be the director of the zoo and my mother grew up in the zoo. But I never thought I would do any work there because the zoo was there and it was what it was. And then last year we took over the project from another city agency and we were in charge of renovating the whole park with its buildings and its landscape, etc., etc. And it's a very challenging project because in the city zoo we have another nature conservation effort which is based on a lot of science and a lot of healthcare for animals in danger and older animals, and that's combined with the idea of the city mayor to turn it into an open public space, which it wasn't before. Before that you were charged to get into the park, and now you can really walk from one end to the other without being stopped, but in between your promenade, there's a lot of health facilities for animals that have been kept many times even away from the So we restored the older paths. Actually this, as you can see, this guy, the landscape architect, liked ellipses. And we had to restore this one, which had been taken away. And the other ones we repaved with brick pavers, simplified the whole scheme, took away a lot of asphalt, and basically renovated the historical structures which were from the Victorian period. But all of these, like this was a parrot cage, now they're empty and they're being given to different agencies for different environmental exhibits. The older pavilions are not going to be for animals anymore, so we have to be new ones for the animals. So this is the ellipse we restored. The lake was totally rebuilt. Here there was a big, like a SeaWorld structure with sea wolves and seals jumping around, etc. We took that away and we turned this into a water consciousness awareness place where this is the estuary of the River Plate, the Rio de la Plata. And then kids would throw plastic bottles here and they would go downstream. And that's how you learn you shouldn't throw your bottles into the water. Because they end up in the sea. So this is still in the works. This is where the lions used to live, and now it's going to be turned into a museum. But again, you see that basically the success of all of this is you disappear as a designer and people take over. That's sometimes you think, okay, well, your work is going to be in some book, so now some of my work is going to be mostly in Facebook and maybe in Instagram, which may not be a bad thing. These are just beautiful places as it were, so our contribution is very humble and simple, which is just repave and get back most of the greenery which had been taken away during the last decades. Some new bathroom pavilions. Toilets, not bathrooms. There's no showers. This is the old lion's cage. So again, you're going to go, if you go to Buenos Aires, you're going to the zoo, for sure. Not that you know. And it used to be a small train station for a miniature train that used to be here, and now it's turned into, this is the first private franchise that we gave, it's now a coffee shop. So this is part of the history of the place. This used to be the the horse stables. Now it's going to be another exhibit. And I am not by training, I'm not an expert in historic preservation, but I was lucky to inherit a very strong team. So, kind of rounded up on education, I can say I can check all the boxes in the School of Architecture, MAPP. Maybe not as an expert, but maybe as a responsible. So for a complete education, there's a numeric model. For a complete education, this has been great. Some repeated. This is the music pavilion, which we discovered was imported from Scotland originally. We renovated. This is where the reptiles used to live. And this small piece here is called the Temple of Vesta, but it's not a copy of the Temple of Vesta in Rome, but a copy of the Temple of Hercules, but we call it Temple of Vesta. And I'm going to finish here because I'm really honored to have my great-grandfather's name here because he was the mayor of Buenos Aires in 1910 when this was built. So it goes all the way around to history and maybe being responsible of keeping things that you didn't know you